Do you ever wonder about those little towns that you drive through that are not just a dot on the map? Places that not many know much about? What made them? What broke them? What could still haunt them? Well, we're going to dive a little deeper into that. I'm your host, Doc Steph, and welcome to Rural Doc Hop. Welcome back to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Now to move on to the paranormal and lore that inundate this area. The Mothman. No, this is not the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater, but it may be close. This is a cryptid with so much lore around it that this one podcast can only begin to cover it. Entire books, TV shows, documentaries, and a museum have been dedicated to the Mothman over the years. Did Mothman sightings just begin in the 1960s? Nope. Over 50 years earlier, in 1914, a report of a large bird with the head of a man and a 12-foot wingspan was seen in the area of Point Pleasant, and a few more sightings of this strange creature throughout the early 1900s were eerily similar to the current description. Those that saw this described it as being covered in dark red feathers, while others said just dark-colored skin. It was seen along roads along the Ohio River and was associated with being a harbinger of bad luck for those who saw it. In Bradwood, Illinois, in 1957, Gerald Turris was hunting in a forested area around dusk. He encountered what he described as a humanoid creature that was 6 to 7 feet tall with wings that spanned 10 feet wide at least, without feathers, which was flying above the trees. Local authorities brushed it off as a bird sighting, which would become the most common realistic cause of what authorities figured was seen. Later in November of 1966, in Clendenin, West Virginia, 60 miles from Point Pleasant, 5 grave diggers were working when something in the air caught their attention. A large, dark figure seemed to be soaring above them with a huge wingspan. It moved quickly between trees. They described its silhouette as that of a man, but with wings. They reported it to the Mason County Sheriff's Office at the time. 2 days later, in Salem, West Virginia, 90 miles from Point Pleasant, an even more distinct incident occurred. Noel Partridge was watching TV, winding down for the night. His TV seemed to start emitting a weird noise, like that of a portable generator winding up. Then its screen went dark. All of a sudden, it started filling with strange geometric shapes and designs. At the same time, his dog started barking loudly outside, and he took a flashlight to investigate. Pointing his flashlight towards the old pump house on his property, he was accosted by 2 large glowing red eyes, appearing like bicycle reflectors, staring directly at him. He had a very uncomfortable feeling. His dog ran in that direction and was never seen again. November 1966. The TNT area, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. En route State Route 62, 2 young couples were out driving, one showing off their new car. They were close to the old North Power Plant that was supplied by the TNT area and was then abandoned. Driving at dark, they saw it, standing on the side of the road, a 6.5 to 7 foot tall humanoid figure, seemingly built bigger than any man. It was gray in color, with large wings folded behind its back, with 2 large red glowing eyes, which they said were where the shoulders should have been, as there was no head to be seen. It started toward the power plant entrance, and the driver floored the accelerator of the car to try to get away. The creature followed the car, flying after it, sometimes sweeping down at it and making screeching sounds, other times just flying silently, staying slightly back. They reported going over 100 miles per hour on the straight stretch just outside of town to try to get away from it, but it kept up with them without any trouble. It chased them all the way to the city limits before disappearing. They went directly to the sheriff's office to report it, and a deputy went back with them to investigate, but nothing was found. The next day it was reported in the newspaper, and a news reporter likened it to a Batman television series and called it Mothman. This was evidently the right call, as the name stuck. The next day, November 16, 1966, once again in the TNT area of Point Pleasant, a local resident, Marcella Bennett, went with her family friends to visit a friend who lived within the old TNT area and took her infant daughter, Christina. When returning to the car, a large form rose up in front of her that was gray, bigger than a man, with glowing red eyes. She was so afraid she laid down on the ground over her infant daughter, scared it would attack, and was frozen by fear. A relative had to grab them both and run into the house, closing the door behind them and locking it tight. The creature banged and clawed at the door, and before moving on, it peered into the windows at the scared group of eyewitnesses. She reported being in a state of shock, and later even required medical therapy for anxiety and panic attacks, likely PTSD from the event. On December 4th of 1966, at the Gallipolis Airport, 5 pilots observed a humanoid with wings moving near the airport in broad daylight. They were well-trained pilots, used to different birds, planes, helicopters, and this defied anything they had seen before. They watched as it flew over the trees toward the Kanawha River. From November 1966 to November 1967, over 100 sightings were reported. It is hard to say how many went unreported for fear of others deeming the eyewitnesses crazy for seeing a winged human flying over trees, fields, and buildings. A West Virginia University biologist came to Point Pleasant to try to dispel the sightings as a large sandhill crane that may have stayed put instead of migrating. Some believed that it was a crane, but they thought it must have mutated from the chemicals found in the TNT area. John Keel, a reporter from New York, had been keeping track of all the sightings that he could and compiled a list of attributes that seemed quite similar between eyewitnesses. These included a humanoid being that seemed wider than any normal man and that was 5 to 7 feet tall, eyes that glowed red and seemed to be at the tops of shoulders instead of on a head, were noted by most witnesses. Most said the wings seemed bat-like and the creature glided instead of flapping them, and was also able to take off straight up like a helicopter. Skin color ranged from gray to a brownish red. It could fly at unnatural speeds over 100 miles per hour for long ranges, and it would emit a humming noise when airborne and could also screech loudly. Close to the time of the Silver Bridge collapse, the Mothman was said to have been seen outside of a downtown building and appeared to look like a gargoyle, leaping straight up and flying away. Still another person recalled going to bed at night and waking up to the Mothman standing next to his bed, utterly terrifying him, and then leapt out of the open window to the street below. Others swear they had seen the Mothman multiple times flying over or even perching on the Silver Bridge. Some believe he is an omen that the bridge would fall, others just an omen of bad luck to the area. After the bridge collapse, sightings of Mothman decreased substantially, and hardly anyone would speak of him for many years to come. A harbinger of other disasters? Days leading up to the April 26, 1986 meltdown of the nuclear plant in Chernobyl brought sightings of a large humanoid flying creature. Amazingly, it had similar features, including a wide frame, glowing red eyes on a headless body, and bat-like wings with a larger than 10-foot wingspan. All that saw it had a feeling of doom once they had witnessed it. It had been sighted over the skies in Chernobyl by many in the control rooms. Not only was it seen a few days before, but on the day of the disaster itself. After seeing the monster, eyewitnesses were plagued with dreams of a large, terrifying monster with red eyes. It's hard to tell for sure what all came to pass for those who saw the cryptid, because many would have died from nuclear radiation as they were close to the meltdown itself while working. Another harbinger-like tale is told about a mine site in Freiburg, Germany. They called this cryptid the Freiburg Shrieker, and it was only seen once. Legend has it on September 10th of 1978, Miners were getting ready to start their shift in the mine when a large black creature with huge wings blocked their way inside. When they tried to get close, it let out a high-pitched scream, which was described like a train coming to a fast halt or that of 50 people screaming at once. After facing off with it for over an hour, they left, hoping this would get it to leave as well. Just a bit later, there was an explosion in the mine, and the mine itself caught fire. This creature likely saved their lives. Current Mothman sightings have seen a resurgence in the 2000s. In 2017, in the northern Illinois area surrounding Chicago, there have been over 200 sightings. These are very similar to other eyewitness encounters, including a tall, dark humanoid figure with no head, glowing red eyes, and a 10-foot wingspan. These encounters spread anywhere from more rural areas to urban sightings, including in city parks, near bodies of water, and even in busy downtown areas. Some believe that maybe Mothman is migratory, and Lake Michigan was a good place to stay. Others believe he could be there due to heightened political and social unrest. John Keel, author of the Mothman Prophecies, speculates that Mothman may be an interdimensional being moving between different planes of existence. If so, the change from Point Pleasant to Chicago may have been a fluctuation in interdimensional pathways. This could explain why he seems to exist beyond our normal way of thinking and natural reasoning, yet so many have seen him. Now, moving on from a cryptid to out-of-this-world phenomena, during the time of Mothman sightings in the 1966 to 1967 time span, there were also a rush of UFO sightings in the area. The most notable UFO sighting, and one of the first in the area, was Woodrow Derenberger, who was driving home to Mineral Wells on Interstate 77 when a UFO landed in front of his truck. He stopped, and a grinning telepathic entity approached him. He was very tall and dressed in a reflective greenish-black clothing with a wide grin. He told Mr. Derenberger that his name was Ingrid Cold, and that he originated from a planet called Lanulos in the Ganymedes galaxy. Over the years, Derenberger claimed to be visited multiple times by Ingrid Cold. Many UFO sightings happened in the Point Pleasant area over the next year, while Mothman sightings continued as well. Anywhere from different lights that were expected to floating cylinders and discs were reported. Some even finding areas of grass burnt or pressed down where these appeared to have landed. Hundreds of sightings took place, especially around the TNT area. So many so that special news desks were set up by local and regional news outlets to report on the UFOs. John Keel and Mary Heyer, both reporting and gathering information on Mothman and UFOs, both were accosted by men dressed in all black suits, white shirts, black shoes, and fedoras. They were questioned about what they had seen. These men in black, as John Keel coined, seemed to show up and harass anyone that had seen UFOs or other abnormal phenomena. Further descriptions of the men in black included that they seemed mostly tall and thin with jet black shiny hair. They had an unnatural skin tone, almost olive in nature, but yet almost translucent as well, with no blemishes. They had strange appearing eyes, often covered by sunglasses or glasses. Many witnesses also reported that they never seemed to blink. Some were dressed in what appeared to be military clothing, but with things not quite right, including insignia, but slightly off. They would travel in groups of 2 to 3, often getting out of Cadillacs. This continued until the type of car was reported. Then they seemed to switch to Volkswagens. All were late model 1940s to 1950s style cars, which seemed new, without rust or blemish. A waitress reported that they didn't seem to know how to use a knife or fork, and they had to have help cutting steak. They also didn't seem to chew their food, just swallowed bites whole. They carried what appeared to be sophisticated gadgets, and one eyewitness even was concerned that they may have wiped out part of her memory. When they did accost witnesses, they seemed to already know details of what they had seen and personal information about each witness. Mothman eyewitness Connie Carpenter was accosted by men in black, one even trying to shove her into his car so forcefully that her shirt sleeve tore. Later, a note was found pinned to her door stating, "Be careful, girl. I can get you yet. Faye Laporte, another Mothman eyewitness, reported going back to the TNT area with friends to try to see if they could find Mothman or see the lights or UFOs that had started to be seen. Instead, her and her friends were stopped by 2 men in black that barricaded them out of the site and told them to leave or there would be consequences. John Keel, one of the main investigators of the Mothman and UFO sightings, would later become one of the most renowned ufologists. He would document dozens of men in black appearances and would later describe these in his writings. He would try to catch the men in black to question them, and even had local sheriff's offices in Ohio and West Virginia on the lookout for when they would show up. Many eyewitnesses would let him know when the men in black would show up, but no matter how close he got, he would always miss them. Later, he would become one of the centers of a conspiracy theory that the men in black had actually taken these witnesses and replaced them with doppelgangers. Even he was rumored to have been replaced. Mary Heyer was a well-known local newspaper reporter and investigator on the Mothman and UFO sightings. She too had experiences with the men in black. One such experience was when she was accosted by a man in her office, which she described as short-statured, dressed all in black, with olive skin tone and odd eyes, covered by thick glasses and long, dark black hair. He initially asked for directions, but as he got closer to her desk, he started questioning her, demanding of her what right she had to report on those UFOs and Mothman. She picked up the phone to get someone from the circulation desk to come to her aid. While she did this, the man picked up a pen. He stared at the pen like he'd never seen one, laughed, and then sprinted out of the building. Later, she would be accosted again by another man who came to her office not long after the bridge collapse. He did not want information about the collapse. Instead, he insisted on speaking to her about the UFO sightings. As she was very busy and had no interest in talking to another person about this, she instead gave him a folder of relevant news clippings. He wasn't interested in these, and he left. Instead, the same man later that night visited multiple eyewitnesses, accosting them at their homes and making them very uncomfortable. He claimed to be a reporter from Cambridge, Ohio, but inadvertently admitted he did not know where Columbus, Ohio was, which was a huge red flag. So who were these men in black? Some believe they are government agents or rogue agents sent to cover up something that was not meant to be seen, such as UFOs that were actually government projects, a gene experiment gone wrong resulting in Mothman, or maybe even covering up the existence of aliens themselves. Others believe, due to their weird behavior and appearance, that they themselves were aliens trying to dissuade locals from looking further into their existence. Others still believe they are some sort of travelers trying to prevent some future event brought on by knowledge of the indescribable, many even from another dimension. Any way you look at it, I'm just reporting. Please don't come for me, men in black. Now into some hauntings for Point Pleasant. The main hotspot we'll talk about is the historic Lowe Hotel. It is located just across the street from the Mothman Museum. It's currently undergoing restorations, multi-million-dollar ones, but has a large place in Point Pleasant history. Built in 1901, originally the Spencer Hotel, named after its financial founder, it is a 54-room hotel. It is originally built on lands that had been owned by Colonel Andrew Lewis, who was given the land in payments for his efforts in the French and Indian War. It was originally built for $65,000 and furnished for $10,000, equal to approximately $2.5 million and $400,000 respectively today. It was originally built to serve the heavy riverboat traffic, with rooms on the 3rd floor set aside for riverboat captains and crew members. The 1st floor housed a bank, saloon, barber shop, and wholesale liquor store. In the 1920s, it was known for its fine dancing hall. When the Great Depression hit, the hotel was sold to the Lowes, and they immediately put a stop to the gambling and prostitution that had been commonplace there. Areas for church gatherings and civic meetings were opened. Some of the features original to the hotel can still be seen, and others hopefully will be restored. Originally Tiffany stained glass windows can be seen from the street, and the original fireplace still stands. Some of those who first stayed likely still haunt the premises, some on each floor. We will start at the top floor and work our way down to the most notorious ghost of the Lowe Hotel. The fourth floor is home to the main ballroom, and it is said that you can hear a string quartet here day or night. It is best heard from a few feet from the stairwell. Also, there are storerooms on the fourth floor, one of which has an old rocking chair in it, supposedly belonging to one of the previous owner's widowed mother, and it seems to rock on its own. The third floor is one of the most active areas, with multiple reports of hauntings. It is said that a maid likely inhabits the area. Transoms above doors have changed positions, whistling can be heard, and cleaning supplies are moved or placed out where no one has been cleaning. Others have felt sudden chills and felt watched in the area. Specific haunts on this floor include multiple rooms. Room 316, a multi-room suite, is said to be haunted by a riverboat captain. A patron had returned to her room to find a man standing at the window facing the river. She demanded to know who he was and what he was doing in her room. He replied that he was Captain Jim and that he was waiting on a boat. She realized she couldn't see legs on this man, and she ran away as quickly as she could from the room. Another patron awoke to a man standing at the bottom of her bed with a large beard. She went home and painted him and sent the painting to the hotel, who has since hung it up in the riverboat suite. Patrons of that same room have also reported the sounds of someone pacing the hallways. Many have experienced this over the years. In room 314, a man has been seen appearing in 1930s-style clothing. In room 309, patrons have noted a woman kneeling at the edge of the bed, random lumps in the bed, and wind blowing in the room with no source. Still another room has reported phenomena, room 305, where a photo of an apparition has been caught. On the second floor, outside of rooms 202 and 203, other photograph evidence has been caught. Also, on this floor, a 2 to 3-year-old child has been seen riding a tricycle. They make no eye contact either, and they don't speak to any guests. Other times, child's laughter or the squeak of a tricycle can be heard. It's believed that this is a residual haunt from one of the previous owner's children. Now for the most notorious haunt of the hotel. This apparition is seen as a long-haired, disheveled woman on the mezzanine level. She is seen barefoot in a nightgown, dancing to music that only she can hear. It is said to be Juliet Smith, daughter of one of the previous owners. She had fallen in love with a local boy that her father did not approve of. The boy moved on and married, but she never did. She was noted to have a love for dancing and music. A Sci-Fi Investigate special came to the Lowe Hotel, and skeptic Boston Rob was so rattled by the experience, he swore he saw her, and he left and refused to stay in the hotel. There are many smaller ghost hunting societies whom have investigated the Lowe Hotel, and some individuals as well, many of which have had experiences. So what do you think? Would you visit and learn more about a small dot on the map? Would you look into more history of an unknown small town, there it was founded in and thrived, and what caused it to decay over time? Or would you even dare to hunt for the ghosts or cryptids that haunt the area? Stay tuned to Rural Doc Hop for more small town history and lore. Thank you for lending your ear. I'm Doc Steph, signing off for now.